Hello, and welcome to Unsheathed with your hosts, Kyle Gold and Cam Hirosaki. We hope that you enjoy the program. Please stick around afterwards. There'll be cake and blowjobs.
Hi, welcome to Unsheathed episode number 84. I'm your Vulpine host, Kyle Gold.
And I am your Lutrine host, Cam Hirosaki.
And we're pleased to be back in our secret mountain bunker again.
Mm-hmm. We're podcasting by candlelight.
We are. Not because we need to, but because we want to.
Yes.
It's more old-timey romantic that way.
Aw. We are both old-timey romanticists.
I believe we are.
You more than me, but...
And speaking of old-timey, I believe you have an announcement to make.
Yes. So, a long time in the making, dating all the way back to October, November 2009, if you can remember that decade. Yes, just the other night at 1:30 a.m. on Friday, June 10th, I finally finished my third draft of Summerhill.
Woo!
Yay! I am really happy. It's just having it done is such a weight off of my shoulders. I mean, it's not done. I need to edit it and revise it and tweak it, but unlike the last time I wrote a full draft of this, I'm looking at this and going like, okay, like this is the story, this is how I like it. Now I just need to like sandpaper the edges.
Yeah, adjust some of the joins and...
I mean, the draft I had before this was only half as long.
And I think the draft you had before that was only about half of that.
Less than half. My first draft was around 16,000. My second draft was like around 45, I want to say. And this one's around
Sounds
90.
about right.
Yeah, this one's around 90. Which, I mean, that's an average length, normal, like, mass market novel.
Yep.
It's not like super long. It's
It's
actually almost only half the length of Isolation Play, but Isolation Play is really long.
It is. Yeah, don't judge novels by my standards because I write them long.
I don't judge anything of mine by your standards.
That's good advice. Well, congratulations. We're all very happy here. We were delighted to hear the news and are looking forward to reading the new draft. And
one of my readers has already read it.
I'm not surprised, actually. I bet I know.
Yeah, I bet you know who it is.
I know who it is, yeah.
But, well, he said, I had to read it once for pleasure, and now I'm going to go back and read it again to give you actual feedback. I'm like, That's cool. I mean,
well, he's got nothing else to do in prison, so. But no, it's very cool. We're all very excited. I'm sure all our listeners will be excited to see it and figure out when exactly they'll be able to get their little paws on it. Yes,
I'm going to be talking to the publisher in like a week or so. Take a couple of days and try to hash that out. So I don't know yet, but I will let people know as soon as I know when a feasible release timeline will be. Although it's funny actually because I keep a blog for like my real world self and my different projects, and I had mentioned like, oh yeah, like this was a couple weeks ago. I was like, yeah, I'm getting really close to finishing a novel, and one of the furry publishers who knows me was talking to me. It's like, wow, like you're working on a thing for yourself and you're writing Summerhill? And I'm like, no, I'm just talking about Summerhill. I'm like, no, I'm not writing two novels at once. I'm not going to do that. I could barely do Summerhill. I'm not going to do something on top of it.
Ooh, that sounds sexy though.
Yeah. I don't know, I think Summerhill's too toppy to... Well, I think he'd probably let himself be topped.
I think probably.
Yeah, I was actually having a discussion with the person who had read it about Summerhill's sexual orientation.
Proclivities?
I don't know if he has proclivities. Well, but which will make sense when you know more about him, when you read about him. So
okay. Well, cool.
Spoilers, sweetie.
Anything else on your plate? Are you going to be doing signings at Anthrocon?
Yes. I don't know when or where exactly, but I have 2 new releases coming out, or I'm in 2 new releases. I'm in both Heat 8, and I am in the Fortune Teller's poem, which are put out by Sofwolf Press and Fur Planet, respectively. So I'm sure I'll be behind their tables at least once each over the course of Anthrocon weekend, if not more than once, because,
Right.
Yeah, I just...
Because why not?
Because why not? And, you can't catch everyone at Anthrocon with just one 1-hour block.
Right. And I, of course, cannot catch anyone at Anthrocon because I will not be there this year. But I have, in addition, I'm actually in the same two publications you are, the Fortune Teller's poem from Fur Planet and Heat 8 from Sofawolf. And in addition, Fur Planet is going to be releasing the print version of Weasel Presents at Anthrocon, which I can't remember if I mentioned it on the show, but I've seen a print copy, and it's very Weaselrific.
It is Weaselrific. Very Weaselrific in certain places.
Helfer does spend a good portion of his own story without pants, I will say that.
Yay, Helfer. If you can't tell, Helfer is like my favorite Argaea character.
He puts the "we" in Weasel.
Complete with the exclamation point.
Oh, I broke Kit. I had to be very careful in how I said that too. I don't have really any other announcements. It feels like, for a while there I was going to a FurCon like every 3 weeks.
We're on summer vacation now.
And it hasn't been, it's been a couple months now since we've been to one, and I'm kind of like, being behind a table. I kind of remember what that was like.
You're not going to another one until...
Rocky Mountain.
Rocky Mountain, yes. That is
I will
before
be at Comic-Con, though.
Oh, that's right. You will be there.
Which was not, strictly speaking, a FurryCon, and it's a little different vibe, but...
No.
So I'll be at Comic-Con end of June. I will be at Rocky Mountain mid-August. I'll be at Rainforest end of September, and then Midwest Fur Fest end of November. So we've got another stretch of 3 coming up, where Comic-Con, Rainforest, RMFC. And Feral, actually, I believe I will be at. We will see.
Okay. I'll be at Feral. I'm already confirmed for that. So,
which is cool. We'll have to see about.
And while you're at Comic-Con, I will be at the same weekend for Rikoshi's birthday party extravaganza for people who are too cool to go to Comic-Con.
Or not cool enough.
Or not cool enough. That. It's one of the two.
Yeah. Hold on, I sent an impending mind message from Kit over there, scrawling frantically with his Sharpie.
I see his...
He says, follow me on Twitter for sign-in details at SDCC. Are you going to be the one doing that? Oh, me. Oh, follow me on Twitter for sign-in details at San Diego Comic-Con. Or follow at Sofawolf Press. I think it's Sofawolf Press, or is it just Sofawolf?
It is Sofawolf Press.
It's Sofawolf Press.
Yes.
So follow me, Kyle Gold, on Twitter, or follow Sofawolf Press. I will not be there for the whole convention, but I will definitely be there for some of it. So,
okay.
Figure out when I'm there. Follow me, and we'll try to get Sofawolf to Twitter also. And you should be following both of us anyway. All right, we could do like a whole show on all the people you should be following if you listen to our show and enjoy it. So,
the 3 of us: Sofawolf, Fur Planet, Cat Valenti,
yes,
Foosball.
Okay, well, maybe not a whole show.
No.
I have some ebook stuff kind of brewing, but it's not finished yet, so I guess I'll talk about it next week. But those Anthrocon announcements, we've been talking about them on Furfinity and on LiveJournal and Twitter and whatnot, so you guys should all be aware of what's going on.
I've been thinking about possibly doing like an ebook anthology over the summer, but I wasn't going to stop to do anything until I was done with Summerhill. So now that I'm mostly done, I'll start thinking about it some more. But
cool. Shall we get some questions?
Sure. Do you want me to start or you?
Oh, why don't you start?
Okay. Our first email is from Candrel. Dear Sheathers, I pride myself on being an observant fox. My ears are keen even after years of Scandinavian death metal, and my eyes are sharp as long as I have my trusty spectacles. It wouldn't be a boast to state that I can recognize a wolf by smell at 40 paces. I'm kind of vaguely turned on now. Yet with all my sensory acuity, I must admit I've never tasted the color blue nor seen a mournful chord. That is to say, I find myself baffled by the literary use of synesthesia. I know it can be used effectively. I've caught it on second and third read-throughs of some of my favorite books when I realize that the stated sense and input are mismatched to clever result. The problem is that I can never get it to work for my own stories. How do you find synesthesia is best used, and how do you hide it so that something as jarring as using the wrong sense flows naturally? From Candrel, P.S. It was great catching you guys in person, which shows how long ago this letter was written. Your live show is perhaps one of your best to date. I think he means the
That's
live
the
one
FC
at
one.
FC,
Yeah.
not the San Jose one, which is even longer ago. While I don't get over to the U.S. often, I hope to catch you both again should your next trip include another convention. Well, when we hope you show up.
Yep. That was fun. Actually, one of the books that I've got coming out for RMFC, which we kind of sort of announced when Brer was on the show,
Yes.
has a passage of synesthesia in it.
Which I think was written very well.
Oh, thank you. It's not, I think, what he's talking about, because
No.
he's talking about sort of slipping it in as a way to make a different impression.
Yeah. Not somebody is under a sensory mismatch,
Right.
problem.
Which, I will admit, I got the idea from Alfred Bester's The Star's My Destination.
Which I picked up in Seattle 2 years ago, and it's on my shelf, and I still haven't read it.
It's an odd book.
Yeah, but I hear it's one of those things that you should read if you're into sci-fi.
Yeah.
Which is why it's on my shelf. Now that I'm between Dresden books, I should just try to read it.
Always a lovely day somewhere, sir. When you finish it, you'll get that, and then you'll laugh.
I was going to say, not boom today, boom tomorrow. Always boom tomorrow.
So yeah, so I used it just because I kind of wanted to play with it and see what effect it would have, and I used it for the effect of having someone be completely disoriented,
Right.
and actually experiencing things with the wrong senses, because as you said, their wiring was screwed up. I don't believe I've used it very much in the more literary sense. The only places would be something like, you could taste the fear or taste the confusion, like tasting an emotion.
Yeah.
Or
I think smelling fear is just more of a direct literal thing, though.
Right.
Not so much a synesthesia thing.
I can taste your anger.
I was going to say, not that I recommend...
Sorry, that was my fault.
Not that I at all recommend or advocate doing this, but while playing around with a certain illicit substance a couple of months ago, the best reaction I can get was at one point was I could hear Atari graphics, like Atari 2600 video games, and I'm just like, and I was telling, I'm just like, I can hear the sound of these graphics in my ears. And people are like, okay, you should probably lie down now, which was also true. But I'm just sort of like, no, it made complete sense at the time. And I remember what it was like now that I'm in a complete lucid mindset.
Right.
And I know what I meant. It's just really hard to put into words. And I think that's one thing that you have to recognize is that no matter what you're doing with this, it's going to be hard to put into words because it's not an actual normally relevant part of the human experience to experience things with cross-wired senses.
Now, what I would say is, in sort of a less literal sense, you can use it to, like the idea of tasting something blue. I actually could say I've tasted something blue, because blue's kind of an unusual enough color with foodstuffs that we all have associations with it. Like, no offense, man, but blue Otter Pops have a very distinctive taste.
Why would I be offended by that?
And
I think I'm just mildly turned on again.
By the end of the episode, folks, it'll be a lot more than mild. But the blue flavor, because it's such an artificial thing, has a distinct taste to it. And you could say, wow, this kind of tastes blue. And it's a way to link, instead of having to say, well, this kind of tastes like the blue raspberry Otter Pop. It's a way to sort of link that, because when you're eating it, you register the unusual visual sense, but then also the taste gets linked to it. So like the Atari graphics, my first thought was, well, Ataris have very distinctive noises too.
Yeah.
So you could hear sounds, or you could see graphics, but your brain would kind of link it to the sounds.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's part of it.
And
by the way, bonus points for any of our readers. You can guess what I was on at the time.
I'll guess after the show.
You can guess after.
I think I can guess.
Okay.
But
actually, the whole thing with the taste of blue is so distinct that George Carlin actually has a whole bit on it.
does it?
He has a whole thing about don't eat blue food because it's just like blue is like nothing that's supposed to be food is blue.
Right.
And he's just like, and he's like, think about it. He's like, nothing that naturally occurs that people eat is blue. And he's like, and people will come to me, it's like, well, what about blueberries? He's like, blueberries are purple. Which is true. They are more purple than blue.
Well, yeah.
I'll also follow that up with, I actually got this description from a friend of mine in college, but I think it's very accurate. Japanese melon soda tastes like green. Like if you've ever it doesn't taste like melon. It certainly doesn't taste like that. I mean, I'll just be honest and say it. But if you have like a Japanese supermarket near you, and if you can get a hold of like a thing of melon soda, it tastes like green. Like if the color green tasted like something, that's what I think it tastes like.
Yeah, and I've had that too.
Yeah.
Something can smell green. But in that sense, we don't use it to mean it smells like the color green. We use it to mean it smells like green growing plants.
Yeah, like freshly cut grass. Like I associate that smell with green.
Right. Yeah.
Or
exactly.
algae.
Exactly.
Like the algae smell, like when you like first open a pool. I don't know if you've ever owned a pool.
I don't know, I've had friends who had.
Okay. Yeah, my parents had a pool, and like every summer when like you first open it, there's the tantalizing period where the pool is open, but you have to wait 3 or 4 days for the chlorine to kick in and kill everything that's grown in it over the last 8 months. And you have this very distinct algae smell when it first opens.
Right. Yep. No, I'm familiar with that too.
Yeah.
And you can also, I'm trying to think of other things like
Seeing red.
the taste of those fudgicle pops. To me, those fudgicle pops taste like summer.
Yeah. Yes. I know oh god, I haven't had one of those in probably over a decade. But I know I bet I remember exactly what it tastes like.
Kit got a couple for us last year. Oh yeah, we had them on the show. That's right.
Oh, so I guess it hasn't been.
So you have
a
had
decade.
them in a while.
It's just I associate it so much with childhood that I didn't remember having one.
Right.
Well, actually, in episode 83, when Kit and I were talking about the late harvest Sauvignon Blanc from Honig, where like it tastes like gold. Mm-hmm. Like that's what it tastes like. It tastes like you're drinking liquid gold. I've never drunk liquid gold, but I sort of have an impression that that's what this tastes like.
So I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I mean, I think
it's fun to talk about.
The best way, because when he says like he's not sure how to get it to work, and the best way I could say is like try to equate it to something in your own experience. If not something exactly, try to do something parallel to something you've experienced.
Right.
And actually, I do a lot of this in Summerhill too. At a certain point in the story, where his senses get a bit confused, and you know, I might actually share some of that at some point.
Ooh.
As a teaser to people. It would be fitting for our show because it's one of the sexier parts of the story. But do we want to move on to the next email now? Or?
Sure.
Okay.
Hey, you know what? We were supposed to have our pitches ready for this show, weren't we?
Wow, neither of us remembered that. Actually, none of the three of us.
85. Or, yeah, okay. Well, I was like, I'll just do it off the cuff. No.
I totally forgot.
You can't always do that.
It would be irresponsible of us to do it that way, too.
Yes, it would. We want to provide good examples. Dear Sheathers, I won't go into complicated preamble this time. I have a problem. That is what we're here to solve. My husband and I recently moved into a very small home. It was the right thing for us to do economically, and it may mean that years down the line we'll be able to retire early because we sacrificed now. This, however, has led to a problem. I don't focus well with noise. I don't mean just sound, I mean flashing lights, moving pictures, strange or unfamiliar scents, talking in the background, etc. Given our rather cramped living arrangements, I don't have a room all to myself anymore that I can make my little creative haven. This means that my writing is now competing directly with the noisiest of noisemakers, the TV. I can't seem to get away from it. Even when we compromise and I'm able to get relatively quiet periods of time, they're never long enough for me to truly sink into a story. when I'm in the zone for writing, I can go for a week or more spending every free moment just writing, rehashing, rereading, and reworking a story until I'm happy with it. Asking him to simply do without the TV for that amount of time would be unfair, and I'm not about to do so. The thing is, I know my productivity has fallen off. I'll sit for an hour or more with barely a few words written, while my attention keeps getting drawn over to the TV. The house is small enough that even when I'm not in the same room, I can still hear it. Wherever I go, I can't seem to reach that zen place I need to be. Do you two have any suggestions? I've got stories backed up and clogged in my head, all clamoring to come out. Kendall.
This is one of the key areas where Kyle and I differ greatly in just the way that we write. Like, Kyle can watch TV, cook dinner, talk to Kit, and write at like the same time, it seems.
Kyle will actually go out of his way to create more distraction if there isn't enough around while he's writing.
And like I see this happening, and I'm just like, how the hell does he do it? I mean, I've probably mentioned this in the show a bunch of times, but I almost never write at home. Whenever I write, like, seriously, it's like 99% of the time, I go out to do it. I will go to like a coffee shop or like an Asian tea shop. Those are my two big places, are coffee places and tea places. And I'll just go there. I will put on my headphones as sort of like sensory deprivation. And that's where I do most of my writing. I'm very bad at writing at home. Just because, you know, like my roommate will be watching TV, or I'll be tempted to throw on the TV, or there'll just be stuff happening. And I don't have the concentration to write when I'm doing that. A big part of it for the longest time was the internet. And it's like, I know I'm going to get distracted by the internet when I'm trying to write. The problem now is, of course, as we all know, it's 2011. If you go to a coffee shop, hey, look, the internet's there. It's free. Your computer probably connected to it automatically when you turned it on. And it's just like, damn it.
Yeah.
And like, there will be times where like, I have a netbook that actually has a switch on the front that'll just turn off the network card. And there are some times where, like, if I can tell that, like, I've been on a wiki tangent for like a half hour, I'm just like, no, click, like, turn off the internet completely. No, stop checking Twitter. Stop doing all of this. Like, I just need to make sure that, like, that's one of the distractions that I get out. And I mean, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I do go out and I still end up distracted. But I know that if I stayed at home, I'd just be more distracted too.
Yeah, and part of my right. This isn't going to help, but I'll get to the problem in a second. My mind sort of bounces around a lot anyway, so I need something for it to bounce over to and then come back. If I'm just staring at a story, and I'm not feeling it. Yeah. I can force myself to write, but then I get more and more tired of what I'm writing, and it's just I get as little done as if I'm also, got the TV on in the background.
Yeah.
But I think I've mentioned from a young age I have had the ability to tune out things, which is good when you're trying to write with the TV going on, but not so good when you're trying to pay attention to a boring lecture in college. More than once in college, I would look up and realize that the notes that I had were from something the professor was just erasing off the board, and that I have no idea what the rest of the discussion had been about. I once missed a significant portion of a test because I did not have any notes about what the questions were covering. And I was just like, I had no idea we even talked about that. So, mixed blessing. But
real quick, my trick to making sure that I was paying attention to lectures is that I came up with a very elaborate note-taking system that would force me to pay attention to what I was doing, where I had a black pen, a blue pen, and a pencil. And depending on what kind of point I was writing down, I needed to write in one of those three things. And that made sure that I wasn't just coasting.
That is very admirable. I do not have the patience to do that.
Oh, I don't anymore. I lost that a long time ago. This is before I got into wine.
As if those are related.
They might be.
So a couple of things I can suggest. Cam kind of suggested one, which is if it's possible for you to get out of the house.
Yeah. Odds are there's not a TV wherever you're going.
I don't know if there's a coffee shop nearby or if you can if I kind of assume that everyone has a laptop these days.
Yeah.
But if you have a laptop, if it's portable, if the battery holds out, you can go outside. You can go to a place that has a plug.
Yeah.
Libraries would be a great place if you have a nearby one.
They're still around. I'm sure they're thrilled whenever somebody walks in.
Yeah. The other thing is, if you have a little bit, I know you said you moved for economic reasons, but if you have a little bit of money to toss around, or perhaps put this on your Christmas list, they make noise-canceling headphones, which are actually quite good.
Yeah.
And you could, I know you don't want to listen to music, but you can buy really, like, white noise tapes, or probably tapes.
Yeah, where it's just stuff like, like the beach, or, like birds chirping.
Soundscapes, I think they're called. So you can buy soundscapes, or probably get them for free off the internet.
Oh, I'm sure you can.
And just, I said white noise because he said any kind of noise. And white noise just kind of cancels out everything around, and it would put you in
because there's nothing in it to draw attention.
Right.
I mean, that's what makes it white noise by definition, I guess.
So I would say get, a pair of noise-canceling headphones. A good pair goes for a couple $100.
Yeah, I could say anywhere from like $150 to $300.
Yeah, I've seen the real high-end ones.
They're not cheap, but I mean,
But
they do what they say. I mean, they certainly do put you in this state where, the outside world is like, I would never walk down the street wearing headphones like this, because you would get hit by a car.
Right.
You would have no idea that anything's coming towards you.
No, Kit and I have gotten bumped up to first class on occasion, and they give you these little portable DVD, or actually the portable DVRs now with noise-canceling headphones. And it's funny with the headphones, when you flip the switch, just hearing everything else disappear. And it's crazy. And I'm like,
I can't wait till I'm independently wealthy.
how does it do that?
I'll have that in every room of my house.
So, that's
It'll just be me.
That's kind of what I would suggest.
Me, a bottle of lube, and Chester in my mind. Sorry.
Anything else you can suggest for that?
Let's see. Things that work for me. I know that the subject of listening to music when you write is very much varying by person to person. I, for one, like to just have it on.
Yeah.
It helps if it's something that I know really well, and so I'm not necessarily paying too close attention to it. Like things I can space out to. Like, Kyle, I know you said that you can't do musicals because your brain starts following the story of the musical instead of just trying to get out.
And there's certain ones that I can do, but they have to have gone so far, like Les Miserables I can do, because I've listened to that 100 times.
Yeah.
And so I don't even process the story anymore. And that's the same thing with the TV. I can't write while I'm watching something I haven't seen before and I want to pay attention to. But if I throw on one of my sitcom DVDs and I've seen the episodes a million times, then when I'm stuck in the story, I can kind of switch over and be like, okay, I'm entertained and I know what's happening, and haha, that's funny. And then just go back to the story.
See, and I was thinking, would that work for me? And I'm like, what have I seen a million times? Oh yeah, I can throw on Star Wars. But I guarantee you that if Star Wars is on TV, within 10 minutes, I would just be watching Star Wars.
You could throw on the prequels.
No, then I just want to leave the house, which would accomplish the goal of making me write more.
So, anyway, hopefully one of those suggestions
God damn
works.
it, Hayden Christensen! Sorry.
Now. Plinkett said, don't blame Hayden Christensen.
No. He is not person one to blame.
It's kind of like...
We all know who the number one person to blame is for
It's
the
kind of like, Ewan McGregor's performance in those movies was not significantly better than Hayden Christensen's. It was better.
No, yeah. I mean,
but it wasn't significant, and we know Ewan McGregor's a good actor.
Yeah,
so.
and that's when the first thing that this was pre-Red Letter Media, but one of my friends pointed out, he goes, the way you can tell that the problem with the prequels is with the way that they were just put together and directed. He's like, look at the Phantom Menace. He's like, you have Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson, two people who are by all accounts good actors, and who have
demonstrably good actors.
Exactly,
they have been good.
Yeah, they've been good in a lot of things, and even Natalie Portman. I mean, she's been in things where she's been fantastic. But especially Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson, because they're on screen together. throughout all of the Phantom Menace, they never have any chemistry at all.
Yeah.
And it's just... And since the relationship between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon is supposed to be so integral to the formation of this mythos, the fact that that doesn't come together at all is really damaging to the story as a whole. Sorry, I am really passionate about the fact that the prequels just do so much wrong, and they could have been fixed, like, with really easy tweaks, like... And since I both
big tweak, get a different person to direct.
Yeah,
right.
I know, but like as both a huge Star Wars fan and a writer, I'm just like, oh my god, you could fix this so easily and make this amazing, and you didn't. Sorry.
RedLetterMedia.com.
RedLetterMedia.com. Just watch all 3 of them; they're totally worth it.
Yes.
Is that good? Should we move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
Okay.
Anytime we devolve into Star Wars rambling, we can probably move on to the next question.
That's a good red flag. All right. Dear Sheathers, seeing authors use specifically furry terminology in their stories is a personal pet peeve of mine.
And ours.
Yeah. Words like yif, mur, murray, and fursonal, and all manner of other bastardizations of furry terms just rub me the wrong way.
Okay, I will break in here and just say, yif and mur, I dislike, but I appreciate that they fill a kind of niche that there are no other specific words for.
Uh-huh.
Fursonal, furend, furson.
Yeah.
No. Anyway, go on.
Go
on, letter writer.
This even extends to many new terms that authors inject into their stories that just seem slapdash and out of place in an otherwise well-imagined original world. But on that same note, I can think of quite a few situations where good authors have created terms with such vivid significance within their world that they even wander over to the common parlance. Special, from Duanda's Dream of Electric Sheep, frack, from Battlestar Galactica, and even muggle, from She Whose Books Must Not Be Named, are just so catchy that they've transcended their original source.
Not sure why.
I don't know if muggle's transcended its original source. Usually, I mean, people know it.
Well, yeah. And you've also got, I mean, if you wanted to do more of those, you can go to Tolkien. Tolkien coined a ton of phrases that are now all common parlance. He changed the plural of dwarfs.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Interesting.
The correct English plural of dwarfs was dwarfs, and he changed it to dwarves, which is what we now use.
I know that a lot of my dictionaries don't recognize elven as a word. Mm-hmm. Like, they do elfin, E-L-F-I-N, but that just sounds so pixie-ish and weird. Yeah. It sounds really twee.
And yes, it does.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's a great word, isn't it? Twee?
Twee, yes.
Sorry.
Actually, the way that I know, somebody used that word like years and years ago, and I looked it up, and this caused great amusement with me and some friends because under, I think it was dictionary.com, one of the definitions for twee, one of its synonyms was nimini-pimini. And I'm like, that's terrible. That doesn't explain anything.
That word itself is very twee.
Yes.
Actually, I will say real quick, I have heard furries refer to non-furries as muggles, but like in a tongue-in-cheek way.
Right.
Like, which it's slightly less demeaning than calling them mundanes, which also always bothered me.
Which came from the science fiction fandom.
Right. But that's still also kind of insulting.
It's no less irritating.
Yeah.
I will contribute, although I quite enjoyed the first 2 books of the his Dark Materials trilogy, Philip Pullman books, Golden Compass and Subtle Knife. One of the things that he did in there kind of irritated me. At first I thought it was neat, and then I thought, upon reflection, I think it was... Anyway, they have electric lights, but they don't call them electric lights. They call them anbaric lights.
Oh, that's right.
Because... And his thing was because they're generated, the first electricity experiments were done using amber.
Right.
And so they're all like, oh, it comes from amber, so it's anbaric. And I was like, it's an interesting word, and all it does is kind of make it feel a little more old-timey, but I was confused for half the book trying to figure out what these anbaric lights were. And it didn't really matter in the long run, but it was just kind of like, I'm going to make up a word.
Yeah, sort of like Neil Stephenson syndrome. But anyway... To finish the email, how can I use this to further my own ends? I'm writing a sci-fi story at the moment where adding to the regular lexicon of my characters seems to be the best option. But how can I make it come out sounding right instead of sounding trite? I can tell the difference in others' works, so there must be some artistry to those whose rules I understand instinctually, but not consciously. Thanks as always for your advice, Candrel, the bounteous bringer of oh-ho blowjob reference.
Thank you, Candrel. I would say look for, I don't, if there were hard and fast rules, everyone would do it.
Yeah.
I would say look for the thing, it's kind of to go back to what I was saying about yif and mer. Look for the thing that does not have a specific phrase. When you keep finding yourself using kind of a clunky hyphenated adjective or noun to describe it, and then try to find something lyrical about it to use in its place.
And I was going to say, the difference between things like yif and mer versus frack and muggle is that the latter is a distinct in-universe, within that universe, that is common parlance. Yif and mer is jargon. It is fandom jargon.
But
within
fandom, it is common jargon.
Yes. But
even if not everybody agrees on the origins.
Yeah. But the difference is with Battlestar Galactica, frack is that's their swear word.
Right.
I mean, which, obviously it was invented to get around real world censorship, but the way it's used within Battlestar Galactica makes it feel natural. Where they throw frack around so much that when somebody says mother fracker, it's just that makes complete sense.
And also, frack is kind of linguistically related to frag.
Right.
Which has a wartime meaning. It's for people who don't know, it's basically a friendly fire. But it has a wartime meaning, so it's related to a word that already has that kind of meaning.
Right.
If you look at some of the other examples you used, muggle. Trying to think, I know it's linguistically related to something, but when you hear the word, immediately you get a feeling.
Yeah.
Uggle, the LE is kind of a diminutive.
Right.
And so it's
the
like
double,
something you're looking down on.
The double consonant is sort of I guess a sort of a whimsical sense.
Right.
There's a term for this linguistically. It's called psychomimesis, which is when the sound of a word makes you think something.
Mm-hmm. And so, look for stuff like that. Look for a word that's similar.
Yeah.
And kick things around until you find something that sounds good to you. Chances are, if it sounds good to you and it sticks, go with it.
Yeah. And another thing to do here is, and for Battlestar Galactica, so the new Battlestar Galactica uses frack, which is their thing. The old Battlestar Galactica had frack as well, but the old Battlestar Galactica, instead of years, they had yarns, and they would measure distance in centons. They also had another curse word, which was Felgercarb. None of these things recur in the new Battlestar Galactica, because at that point, it gets too jargony and too silly.
Right.
Frack it's short, it's to the point. It sounds enough like something that
right,
matches.
It is linguistically related to other things.
Exactly.
As well.
I mean,
right.
It's you don't need frack explained. The fact is this happened 200 yarns ago. It's well, why don't you just say years? Come on,
kind of like if when someone goes, oh, spit.
Yeah.
You don't think that that's really what they're saying.
Yeah, unless it's Butters.
Unless it's Butters, yes.
Hamburgers.
Butters is so awesome.
He is.
I'm
Don't ask me, homie.
What's it? There's so many of those for Jesus Christ. Jiminy Christmas is
Jeez
one of my
Louise
favorites.
was the big
Jeez
one.
Louise.
That was a big one up in New England,
up in the Northeast. Yeah, I heard Jeez Louise also. Jiminy Christmas, I've heard, is more Midwestern.
Okay, yeah, that I didn't. I know it now, but that wasn't a thing from my childhood.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that Pinocchio's conscience is named Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah.
And of course, Homer's Jeebus.
Jeebus.
which has also caught on.
Yeah, exactly.
A ton of stuff from The Simpsons. Doe,
yeah,
has become
and meh.
Yeah. Doe might actually be in the dictionary. I think I saw something about it being added to the dictionary.
Oh, it's totally legit at this point. Cromulent.
Yes. which is ironic in addition to hysterical.
Yes.
But Jeebus has become a thing now.
Oh, yeah.
People are like, oh, Jeebus.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember whether it was like, oh, did you ever get HE double hockey sticks?
Yeah.
Yeah. God, that sounds so old fashioned. Just saying it.
That to go back to our first letter. Those words sound like childhood to me.
Yeah, they do. They sound like childhood,
Yes,
like the old Battlestar Galactica.
just like
Feels like childhood.
just like kids in California who know they're not supposed to say hell, so they say hecka. That was hecka good, which cracks me up. It's so adorable.
I started saying hella ironically for a while, and then like it got to the point where I was doing it unironically.
Oh, I know. Who was one of the? We won't say her name on the podcast for fear of embarrassing her, but an artist friend of ours from California was like, she was out in a different part of the country for the first time, and she said, now I told myself when I get off the plane, I am not going to sound like a Californian. I'm not going to say use any California expressions. And she's like, the very first thing I said, someone said, how was your flight? And she was like, oh, it was all hella tight in there. It was awesome. She was like, God damn it.
Wow, does it get more California than hella tight?
It was hella tight.
That is like super Californian.
She was like, oh my God.
Last email.
All
right.
Dear Slick and Sly,
Slick.
So I was reading
Slick
this-
and Sly.
which also sounds like childhood.
Yes.
So I was reading this journal today from none other than the slippery co-host, Candace Mountain Hirosaki. I believe he means Kennesaw Mountain
Kennesaw
Hirosaki.
Mountain. Kennesaw Mountain Landis.
Yeah, he
He
sort of
saved the
mixed
game
up
of baseball.
and was racist.
Well, who wasn't back then?
And in it, he's blathering on about how his character has a want, a need, and a ghost. Now, being as literal as I am, I understood the first two, but thought that Summerhill suddenly contained apparitions. When I asked about it, he clarified, shut up, these are literary devices. Now, I've never heard of these before. Could you care to explain them, and also throw in as many sexual references as your deviously wonderful minds can come up with? I'm sure you'll have plenty of fodder. Yours as a follower of Fellatio, Furnist Hemingway, a.k.a. PJ Wolf. P.S. I think I'll keep the Furnist Hemingway bit. It seems kind of appropriate while I may or may not be right in the newest challenge you guys gave me. But for the purposes of this show, we're going to call you Candrel. So Candrel, the whole thing about a ghost.
All right, just to clarify, Summerhill does not fuck any supernatural creatures in the story.
They're both super and natural, but not supernatural.
Yes, that's true.
So, briefly speaking, and the ghost is an event that occurred in the character's past that drives his motivations in the story.
Yeah.
Let's go back to Star Wars because it's a great storytelling example.
Yeah.
Luke's ghost in Star Wars.
Yeah. He is basically driven by the fact that, he has heard that his father was this great war hero, but, has never known him and doesn't really know the truth about it. And then he, runs into Ben Kenobi and he's like, oh, it's like, you knew my father? And, Ben sort of plays coy with it, but he's just like, no, if this is what my father did, I want to go out and do this with you. And, Ben Kenobi's like, no, stay home, don't get involved with this. And then, of course, his whole Luke's family gets wiped out, and he's like, well, there's nothing for me here now.
Spoilers.
Spoilers! Aunt Brew and Uncle Owen end up at a barbecue on their own front lawn. Or, I don't know if it's a lawn, if it's the desert.
The main course.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's the fact that his father's uncle has told him these stories about his father being an adventure pilot that drives him to seek adventure.
Right.
Yeah, and he wants to seek adventure. He wants to seek more about his father, but it's that thing is past is the fact that his father was this adventuresome pilot. We didn't fit any sexual references in there. I'm sorry.
No, he was not a whiny little kid who asked Natalie Portman if she was an angel.
Right. And that's part of the thing with
you, Lucas.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
Anakin doesn't really have a ghost.
No, he doesn't.
He's a slave, but that's kind of there's nothing that happened, and they try to set up that his motivation is going to be the death of his mother and all that, but it's kind of telegraphed so obviously it's not anything. We don't understand what motivates him,
and that's not even what sets him over the edge at the end.
Right.
Which, again, fuck! Just seriously, this is bad storytelling. Like, yeah, that's a good
I'm
thing.
trying to provide the
Look, here we go.
counterexample.
Luke Skywalker has a very distinct ghost and a need and a want. Anakin Skywalker has a want.
Right.
He only has one of those three. Like, he wants to be this powerful Jedi until the third movie, in this case, he wants to save Padme. And that's really his big driving force in that.
And I mean, he kind of has a need, but it's not real
It's not
clear.
spelled out very well.
It's not, well, the need often isn't spelled out. I mean, like, Luke's want and need are different.
Right.
Luke's want is to get off the planet B and have adventure.
Yeah.
And his need is to crap, I was doing this in one of my panels at FWA, actually.
Oh, were you?
His need is to understand, basically to understand the greater purposes. Because you get to the point in Star Wars, and it's a very understated point in the movie, actually, but you get to a point where he's about to go with the Rebel fleet to attack the Death Star. And Han Solo says, "Why are you throwing your life away on a suicide mission? You're a good pilot, come with me." And basically, again, it's not spelled out, it's not emphasized, but what he's saying is, hey, Luke, come live a life of adventure, which you've already proven you can handle. You've got all the adventure you want. We'll fly around. We'll have great fun. It'll be terrific. It's what you've always wanted. He basically is giving him, this is what you have always wanted. And Luke says, no, I've got to go on this mission. This is important. And that shows his growth, that he understands, and that was his need, was to understand the difference between just, going out and having an adventure and doing something worthwhile to benefit others.
At the beginning of episode 4, he very much is this whiny, petulant child, and his father's like, or his uncle rather, is like, I need you to stay on the farm. I need you to, he's like, but no, I want to go do this. And he's like, look, I need you here. And that's more important. Like you helping this family and this household is more important than you chasing your dreams.
Right.
And like you said, he's given the opportunity to chase his dreams at the end of the movie, and he's like, no, this is more important. I'm needed here.
Right. And
that's called mirroring.
So there you go. And then you have, I mean, try to find that moment in any of the prequels. Like, Anakin basically doesn't learn any lessons in the first movie. He just kind of sits in a ship and spins around until he blows up.
He's not even the main character.
Right. But neither of the main characters learns a lesson either.
No. There really isn't a main character in that movie, which is part of the problem. That's why it's the worst of the 3 prequels. Although I don't know, episode 2 gives it a run for money.
I kind of think episode 2 was worse, but I don't want to go watch them enough to back up that opinion.
You know what? If you're going to rewatch them with riff tracks, because then you can at least laugh at them.
It was funny because I recently watched the Red Letter Media review of episode 3, and that was painfully enough like rewatching the movie. There were parts of the movie that he talked about that I'd completely forgotten. I'd forgotten the whole subplot with General Grievous.
Oh god, I love when he's making fun of it, where it's just like, and then there's like Admiral Bad Guy, and like whatever. It's like, really, General Grievous? Like, that was the best you could come up with. Like, fuck you, George Lucas.
And he's a terrible character. Honestly, I thought Count Dooku died at the end of the second movie. I'd forgotten that he was in there.
Here's the big thing: you have Count Dooku serving a purpose in the role of the story. Basically, in the beginning of episode 3, you kill off Count Dooku and introduce General Grievous, and then basically have him serve the role of Palpatine's right-hand man. You already have Palpatine's right-hand man in the form of Count Dooku. The only reason they did that is like, well, let's get rid of Christopher Lee and replace him with this giant CGI robot badass that we can make look cool with special effects. When if you had just kept it Count Dooku the whole way through, you would have had continuity. And then when Obi-Wan Kenobi defeats Count Dooku at the end, it sets up this like big triumphant victory over it, with the fact that when Count Dooku was mocking Obi-Wan Kenobi about following the Jedi ways in their big confrontation at the end of episode 2. Gah! Sorry, it's just like, it's such an obvious fix.
And also,
I am foaming at the mouth here.
You also would have had Christopher Lee, who's a better actor than a CGI robot.
Yes, exactly. And like, you look at Christopher Lee in that like 5 minutes he's in the beginning of episode 3, and like, he just looks dead inside. Like, why am I here? Like, I'm here to act against a green screen, do nothing, and then have Hayden Christensen cut my head off. Fuck you, George Lucas.
You make me want to go watch the Lord of the Rings movies again.
Yeah, where he's playing a character that is actually interesting.
That has a character.
Yes.
With emotion and lines and isn't in front of a green screen the whole time.
Okay, so Frodo. What's Frodo's ghost?
Frodo's ghost is Bilbo, actually.
Yeah.
Bilbo...
Absolutely. It's very similar to Luke Skywalker in that way, actually.
Yeah. It's Bilbo's adventure, which is a real conflicted ghost, because it's not something where Frodo has this whole, like, I want to go leave. He wants it, but he also recognizes how much trouble it caused Bilbo and how much people in the Shire talked about him after he was gone, and how, Bilbo, old crazy Bilbo now. And so he's kind of jealous, but at the same time, he likes his secure status in the Shire.
It's like the point where, like, Gandalf was like, come with me. He's like... Wait, really? Like, are you sure? So like, I'm not sure I want to do this.
So he loves when Gandalf visits.
Yeah.
Because that's a little taste of adventure, and it's safe, and it's in his home.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So, that's
so there we go. To give another example, and to stop talking about Star Wars, oh my god, like, it is actually taking me time. I'm still a little worked up. Like, my pulse is up, like, my face is still flushed. Oh my god.
You know, we could just... at some point probably do an entire episode just talking about the 6 movies.
We would need like 2 hours. We
could do one episode, one for the first trilogy and one for the prequels. And we could bring in... maybe do a panel. I'll suggest that.
You know
Where
what?
are we both going to be?
You know what? I bet Rainforest would do it.
I was just thinking.
Rainforest would totally let me be on a listen to Cam Hirosaki rant about the Star Wars prequels panel.
Talk about... Well, we should suggest it. Talk about story construction in the Star Wars movies.
I would absolutely... you know how down I would be for that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've seen all of those movies so many times.
Me? No. I would just follow his lead.
Similar to how the director commentary on Cannibal the Musical is basically just Trey Parker and Matt Stone talking about the movie as they drink a bottle of scotch. I would want like 2 bottles of wine and me just ranting about like the Star Wars movies until they kicked me out of the room, basically. We'd need to make it a late night adults only panel because I would be swearing up a storm at that point.
Yeah, we'll see if we can make it happen. It sounds like fun.
Or alternately, if we don't, get me in the hotel bar at Rainforest and say, hey, Cam Hirosaki, here's a drink. Talk to me about the prequels, and I will entertain you for the next half hour.
It's better if you can give him like a jumping off point. So from just listening to this episode, you have several jumping off points. First of all, the use of Count Dooku in episode 3.
Yeah.
The love story in episode 2. The relationship between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan in episode 1. Or if you just want to hurt him, you can always just say midichlorians.
I knew you were going to pull out like a total like kidney punch with that last one, and I'm like, what's he gonna do? Like, is he gonna like bring up like Jake Lloyd as like young Anakin, or is he gonna talk about the fact that pretty much all Natalie Portman does in the 3rd movie is look out windows? No, you had to mention the goddamn midichlorians. I thought you were my friend.
You can also say shot, reverse shot. That works.
That's not story construction. That's bad filmmaking.
That's bad filmmaking,
which is a whole other.
Right. And we don't need to talk about that.
No.
So, Kendall, I hope that answers your question. And hopefully that makes it all clear. We've got... we'll definitely have our pitches for next week.
Yes, thank you.
Because we'll work on them right now or something. I don't know. And let's see, follow me on Twitter to find out when I'm going to be at Comic-Con and also to hear the stupid things I say from time to time. Kyle Gold on Twitter, Kyle Gold on LiveJournal, which is where I post most of my updates and thoughts and stories about crows hanging out outside my office window. And Kyle on Fur Affinity, where I've been trying to copy my LiveJournal posts of late and been more or less successful about it.
And I am Cam Hirosaki on Twitter, LiveJournal, FA, and So Furry. I recently posted another chapter of Summerhill, but I might have mentioned that last week. But if not, go check it out. It's there. And you can find out stuff where I'm going to be like, I'm sure at Anthrocon I'll be tweeting when I'll be where for signings, and meet and greets are, hey, I'm in the bar, come meet me.
And write us emails at unsheathedpodcast@gmail.com. On behalf of Kit and KM and myself, this is Kyle Gold wishing you good night and keep writing.